Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of you, and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. The name of the lady that sat on that couch across from a gentleman and said that her husband was a simp for marrying her when she had 3 kids, and that the women make the men they don't like do all this work, is named Minnie F. Baby. Now, if you look up Minnie F. Baby on search engines, you get these baby dolls of Minnie Mouse. You have to find her. You have to search for her on Facebook. I'm going to tell you what Minnie F. I'm going to summarize what Minnie F. has taught us. Number one, Minnie F. started off in New Orleans. Then I think lived in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, which is not very far from the Gulf Coast of Mississippi. And then she spent some time in Mobile, but I don't think that's where she actually lived. And then she moved to Atlanta. Minnie has said that because of her toxicity, which is her pronunciation of it, that she's known and she's famous and she's a guest on shows, and that it just simply pays to be toxic. Minnie has some confession. She's already called a man a simp for taking her and her kids to a fair, the Georgia Fair. She got dragged for that. And the truth be told, that's one of the confessions included in my collection. And I have it to where after she finally decides to delete the post, which she's not done yet, it'll still be there. I did not realize that some of the confessions I already have are hers. It didn't dawn on me, actually. But Minnie F. Baby is one whose Facebook profile you should comb because she tells so much. And now, finally, Black men at least have a Black manosphere in which we're waking up. And what I suggest that we Black men do right now at this point is to take screenshots of her post and turn around and use them to wake up the men that refuse to wake up, the ones who still went out and voted for Skamala Harris, as an example. We have to say to them, listen, Skamala ain't a Black woman, and the Black women that say she represents them are not ours. Number one, you're being blamed for voting for Trump even though you didn't. Number two, let me tell you how they really feel about you. See, I'm going to quit posting to my Buy Me a Coffee for now, for a few more days, because I want my current subscribers to be able to catch up and keep up. A few days ago, I was at 177 posts. Now I'm at 235 posts. If you count my last post as a confession, it will be confession number 34. I didn't count it as one, but I do make mention of Minnie in that particular post, the last one. Maybe I should go ahead and count it as confession post number 34. And the next confession across which I come shall be 35. But you need to go ahead and subscribe. This is shameless self-promotion. But you know what? You need to go ahead and go to my Buy Me a Coffee page and subscribe. And I'll tell you what the reasoning is. Simply put, there's so many confessions. But I myself did not realize that maybe 3 of them come from Minnie F. Baby's Facebook page. We need to bring her post to the attention of more men. She set up and said to Big Bank that she believes that all women think the way she does. And she sat up here and told us about, number one, the dual mating strategy. Number 2, her cheating and polyandry. Number 3, her sense of entitlement, which she thinks that all women have. Number 4, her willingness to offer intangibles while demanding tangibles in exchange. Number five, her refusal to give head or gawk gawk. You know she'll take it, but her refusal to give it. Not even because of any pressing reason. She just doesn't. Number six, her lack of knowledge of how to cook. It gets worse than that, though. You see, she was involved in a relationship with a woman, and that woman left her for a man. And she said, and this is only 20 hours before me talking right now, she said that she wants men to feel her pain because the stud left her for a man. So men are disposable and to be used, but when a woman leaves her for a man, she wants men to pay. The hatred of men is the one constant in all of this. Now, apparently she was married, not anymore. I'm glad. And that explains why it is. When you see the full interview, then you find out that she was married and is not now. And that's why she didn't mind sitting up and saying that he was a simp. She ain't with him no more. But she left him because that man lost his job and then asked her to pay 1 month of bills and not ask him to pay that money back. And she refused. Now, Islamically speaking, she does not have to pay a bill. However, Islamically speaking, she must obey. And it's not conditional upon his income. If she feels he doesn't make enough money, she can leave and probably won't be able to find somebody else, but those are the options. See, what a lot of Muslim women of the West don't even realize is that while it is a man's job to pay and the financial responsibilities fall on the man, there is no obligation on that man to have a particular lifestyle. That's what they don't realize. I want you gentlemen to realize too that if you, those of you who are Muslim, shouts out to you and salam alaikum, Jaws, Asad Allah Decree, Akdeen, Abdullah, Abu Abdul Malik, Abdullah al-Amriki as well. Well, I think that's the same one. But, I want you, brethren, Brother Campbell, Brother Johnson, even though you ticked me off, I want you gentlemen to understand this. If you are Muslim, when you do your search, Imam Saad already knows this. When you do your search, you're going to have to leave the West to find a traditional Muslima. That's what it's going to take. That Islam is being twisted in the West to turn you into simps by stressing women's rights and not men's rights. That's what the hell is happening in the West. You're going to have to go to places where they're traditional, and then they will appreciate the fact that you will appreciate them if they do their part. You can't look in the West. And you can't even look in certain parts of the Muslim world that are overexposed to Western media. You're going to have to back away from them too. Ain't nothing you can do. That's why it is that some of you who are childless are finding that these ladies are only considering you when they got kids. Divorcees, don't wear hijab, got kids, and they're looking at you. No, it's the same thing. Would they treat you better than a Westernisha? Probably so. But we have to understand that what Minnie F. Baby is saying out loud is what lurks in the minds of many women, and it is going to increasingly lurk in the minds of the women that are not from the West if they're being westernized. And what this means is that the one you might marry today who would treat you better than a Westernisha single mom will turn around a few years from now, will treat you no better, and will even be conscious of what it is that she is doing. You should subscribe really, because if you do subscribe, um, and you go to the Buy Me a Coffee account, you can go to the post I put up about that lady. I didn't know her name was Minnie F. Baby at the time, but you can go there. And then I'm going to refer you at that point also to confession number 19, in which a woman long before Minnie F. Baby sits up and tells you what the game is. She beat Minnie F. Baby to that because she wasn't trying to do the same stuff. So she told you probably even more. Minnie F. Baby has sat up and said that she's just a lady that went through some stuff, but she's lashing out and hurting men that didn't cause her to hurt. And she even says that that's what she's doing, but I'm probably calmer for them because they going to do it to somebody else. No, bitch, you the reason they going to do it to somebody else. And there's another thing I'm going to tell y'all don't realize about Minnie F. Baby. You heard her say that she had a dad. He just stays out of her personal life. She got brothers. So she has male influences in her life from a young age. You'll hear her say that in the interview. What you don't realize is that she comes from some of the most ratchet parts of the United States, New Orleans and southern Mississippi. And I said southern for a reason. What many of us don't realize is that the deep South, Gulf Coast South, is where a lot of the nastiest, most ratchet attitude of black women comes, or it's from where it comes. Truth be told, if y'all really want to know the truth, they were some of the first women to express an outright disdain for light-skinned men for being light-skinned. Then it became, well, for ambiguous-looking men. They were some of the first ones to decide that they actually disliked and wanted to make ambiguous-looking men pay. That started there. A lot of these games that are being played on many of you nowadays were began there. And I know because I'm not the only guy that they played the games on, but I was one of the first on whom they tried to play these games when I was growing up. Maybe 3 or 4 guys that I knew they were willing to do the same things to. Now they're doing this across the board, across the nation, and they're admitting it, and men are admitting that these ladies are doing these things to them. Many are sitting up here telling you these games. Oh yeah, the guys we don't really like, we really make work. We make them work hard. Oh yeah, he is Simp because he took me with my 3 kids. But that's what he had to do. Now there's something that I put on there. There's a lesson that she taught that other sisters have taught, and I'm not going to repeat that on here because my subscribers who actually paid get to hear that message. But I do want you to understand that New Orleans, you go from really from Houston, uh, going at least as far as Pensacola, maybe further eastman, I'm not sure, but definitely to about Pensacola. You go from that corridor along the Gulf Coast, and you are going to find some that a lot of the nastiness and the ratchetness starts there. It has been for a long time in some of its worst forms there, and then it spreads. And the funny thing is that if you trace its spread, the spread of it is largely from the Gulf Coast through Atlanta to everywhere else. Baltimore as well too. Memphis. Now Memphis is a place from which a lot of that nastiness and ratchetness gets broadcasted. Um, but Atlanta is a place from which the ratchetness and nastiness gets broadcasted, but it is not necessarily native to Atlanta. It's actually, a lot of that is actually coming from the deeper South, even further south than Macon. That's where a lot of that stuff is coming from. And then through Atlanta, and then it is broadcast through popular media, mainstream and social, to other places. That's the truth of the matter. See, when I was in seventh grade, um, a girl came to me when I was visiting New Orleans. My parents were visiting their friends in New Orleans. And I was talking on the phone to the daughter of some of my friends in New Orleans. And, the funny thing is that this girl who I was visiting came along and said to me, Jet, um, she said that you went to visit her at her house. Your parents were there visiting her parents, and that you were there, and that you tried to kiss her and she ran off. And I was like, whoa, I never been to her house. And then she went ahead and told me some other things that this girl said. Now, let me tell you what was bothersome about this. There was nothing messy about this particular girl, but I never tried to contact her again. As a matter of fact, I saw her from a distance once after that, but uh, I didn't even tell her who I was. Her father, when I was an adult the next time I saw her, and her father actually talked to my dad and said, do you think that Black will be interested in my daughter S? My father told me about this later. And I said to my dad, well, you probably remember when I talked on the phone with her when we were kids, but she said some things that weren't true just for no reason. There's no reason to even make these things up. Like, I never been to her house. I think you and mom may have been to her parents' house, but I never went to her house, let alone try to kiss her and she ran back. I don't know why she would say this. But the fact that she would, even though now we're adults, it just tells me that she would probably remember saying that. And if I were interested in her now, even though it was when we were kids and she did it, she'd probably still not be able to respect me. And dad said, well, I already told her dad that I'm not trying to play matchmaker and that I'm not trying to get involved with her, your love life or pressure in any way. And I said, no, Pop. You see, you don't have to worry about that because in all honesty, I trust your judgment. You could, I mean, wouldn't, I'm not against you and mom arranging it. I wasn't even Muslim at the time. I said, I'm not against you and mom arranging a marriage per se, because I think you would be fair to both some young lady and me. I just don't think uh, I think that people would hide from you certain things about whoever the young lady is. That's what I worry about. I just think they would hide these things from you. Like, for instance, you didn't know what she said when I was a kid. Later on, I found out, and this is what messed me up, but later on, I found out that the girl that told me this stuff had a crush on me. I don't think that the girl I was talking to on the phone as a kid said these things. I was an adult when I found out that the girl that told me this stuff, now a grown lady, had a crush on me. But when I gave her a chance, she flaked. And I am not concerned with why she did. She was not mean. She just, let me put it like this, she friend zoned herself. But that's New Orleans for you. My hometown is not better. They are messy as hell. And I know that they're messy throughout this I-10 corridor. Just messy. A girl in Houston told me when I was younger, not that she knew, but that she suspected that I was never going to be treated equally to other black men because of my appearance. She didn't mean because I was ugly. Now, she said, I think this might happen. I was in high school when she told me this. Ninth grade, I was a freshman. But I didn't really take it to heart because she said that's just something that she thinks. She said, I could be wrong. I mean, for your sake, I hope so. It's not fair to you. But she also said, you probably are going to be a puppy or you're going to be perceived as one. Now, that was what they were calling a simp at that time. She said, or if they're going to think that you're one even if you're not. I know. See, back then, these were not games that they were playing on every single body. Some of the rules were the same, but this insistence upon assuming that some men were going to be a certain way, this, this, the odds that you cannot beat were not necessarily there. Now you don't start off with a blank slate. When I was growing up, I did not start off with a blank slate. Most of you guys would have started off with a blank slate with a woman. If you're not a type, you're just not a type. It didn't mean she would hate every other woman that didn't like you or wasn't that either. But in the Gulf Coast, they practice these things on me and a few other guys because that's who they were from the very beginning. So when I listened to the full interview after I found it, and she started talking about she was from New Orleans and then she moved to Mississippi and then moved to Atlanta, then Mississippi, then back to Atlanta, I realized, oh my God, this chick is ratchet. Super ratchet. I mean, for one, she's from the Night Ward. And her accent is not the accent of someone that never left. So I believe from her accent that she lived there and elsewhere and at young ages. That sounds consistent with her accent. But as she went on and on and on, you could see she was clearly demanding, willing to give little, but very demanding. I treat you good, but you got to pay. Okay. But here's the thing. She hates men's polygynous natures. The sense of entitlement is something that has been around for a long time and in various places, but I do want you to know that it has been at very toxic levels for a long time along the Gulf Coast. We're coming up on 2025. 19, by 1994, it was pretty bad. But like I said, they were willing to start off with a lot of guys on a clean slate. Now, no one does. If you want to know what else uh, she has taught us and what else I know from women like her, and this is before I uploaded this. But let me tell you, if you want to know what else she's taught us, you need to go to Buy Me a Coffee. And if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do it and listen to the post entitled She Called Her Husband a Simp and Confessed the Game. Because she tells us what the game is. You got to get a man that ain't used to being with a bad chick. Well, they shut you out like a sexual labor union to make sure that most of us would not be used to that. She even said you get a guy that looks like a square and you run the games on them. Well, okay, just because he looks like a square, what if he's not? Well, the thing is, most black women have their minds made up already, collectively speaking, that if you look like that, then they are all supposed to treat you like this. So that they can later look at you and tell what you have not been through and what you have been through and what they can do. What you don't know and what you know, so that they know what they can do. It's rigged. But if you want to know what it is that I mentioned there, you just got to go there to see. what the other thing is. And I recorded that before I even knew that she was from the Gulf Coast. Before I knew that she was from New Orleans, Ninth Ward. Before that, I recorded and uploaded what I put on Buy Me a Coffee. What I put on that post. You cannot afford to miss that. It's something I've mentioned before, but I haven't mentioned it recently. And I tell you that she applies the same thing. The most important thing to note is where you got to go there to hear it. But I'm amassing these things, these confessions, and collecting them there so that when they're taken down later, you'll still be able to refer to them. I'm doing that on Buy Me a Coffee. I have to. Someone does. It's got to be done that way because, frankly, as she gets more pushback, and understand this is the same one on Facebook because she posted a link to the interview on her Facebook page. But as she begins to get more pushback, she's going to eventually take these things down. You know how I know she's going to? Because she said it in the interview. She sat up and said in the interview, well, I'm probably going to change. I'm probably going to start going to New Hope. And I'm going to be able to find somebody when I decide to change and be better. Big Bang said on the podcast that she's delusional and she denied it, but she wrote the exact same damn thing on her Facebook page. I'm a bit delusional, but you're going to really love it or you're going to hate it. Bitch, we hate it. You think you're going to sit up here this day and age where everyone knows someone on the net and you just going to find you a good dude and you're not going to pay? You're probably going to find somebody that's going to take you in. I mean, you already found a simp to marry you when you had 3 kids and you left him and decided to go and pay your own bills anyway because he lost his job for a month and asked you to hook him up with the bills 1 month. So, I mean, you might find someone again later, but like Big Bang said, is he going to be the one you want? And also what is important to understand, you all listening, is the fact that Minnie F. Baby is already planning to be this reformed ex-ho. She told the man that her body count was 64. She said this. 64. She also set up and told Big Bang that you get a man to take care of you, and then you get a man on the side that you just are feeling, that you just like. Well, the man on the side ain't got to take care of her. She said, well, no, because you got your main man for that. So she's ended up admitting to the dual mating strategy. She's admitting to this because she been hurt. So she's telling you now that she's going to do all this dirty, filthy, nasty, stank, funky stuff at this point, right now. Now, we already know when women are willing to do that, most of us are going to be categorized as the ones who got to pay, and few of us are going to be categorized as the ones with whom they want to play. So in other words, most of us are the guys on whom these bitches will cheat. Few of us are going to be the guys with whom they'll cheat. And that's not your fault. But she's admitting that she's one of them dangerous broads, but she going to change one day. Here's what she doesn't understand. She going to still be by herself, and she going to stay by herself. Brittany Renner's going to go through that. Brittany Renner then became a Muslim. Are we willing to welcome her in as a practicing Muslima? Yeah. Is she going to find somebody to marry her? She better not. Unless he has the same body count as her. And even Brittany Renner's body count does not match Minnie F. Baby's. So when Minnie F. Baby does decide that she's going to settle down and become a reformed ex-thot, men are going to get up in that dude's face. And she was sitting up talking with Big Bank about how when everybody else knows your business and in your relationships, they say something and they mess it up for you. Well, that's exactly what the hell's going to happen. How do I know? Because the minute she decides to become a church woman, I will follow her just so that if she does get married, I'm going to say to that man, listen, send me your email address. Okay, bet. I'm going to give you a free 1 month subscription to my Buy Me a Coffee, just free 1 month. But in the meantime, you're going to be able to see these confessions. I'm about to email them to you. I email him the confessions. If he stays, I put his name out there. If he leaves, I sit back and I say, smart man, welcome to the black manosphere. So it's a win-win for men either way, just so that these bitches 304 retirement plans are not going to be available later. Because I want a culture. When I pass away, I want a culture that is not going to teach my son, but also any grandsons I might have and great grandsons I might have to be simps and to settle for something like this unless they have a higher body count. And I don't want my descendants having high body counts because I don't want them fornicating, male or female. So she's sitting up telling you that she's already got her exit planned out and she's banking on men being available for that. And what we ought to do is go ahead and not necessarily police each other's Johnsons to sick levels, but at the very least police each other enough to where the 304 retirement plan is not there. Since you guys are not going to get up to body counts of 64, and that's not your fault. Don't blame yourself for that. But since you're not going to get up to that, why should you be kept in the dark when these ex-thoughts decide to show up in the church? And you know what, man? I'm going to tell you, we need to go ahead and start letting these churchmen know what it is. Letting these inexperienced brothers in the masjid know what it is. Let them know that these same girls that they're dating with a view to marriage that aren't giving them any and aren't supposed to according to rules of the rules of the religion are still out there fucking somebody else that ain't attending no house of worship. That's the guy that's getting it for free and ain't got to marry her. Then when they get married, he gets the used up kitty cat and doesn't even know the difference. And he has to do all of these things as a husband. Meanwhile, her soul is tied to a man that ain't got to do none of these things. And that's the one with whom she's going to cheat. And when they're pregnant, the couple is pregnant, he'll need to know that that's how she was so that he knows to question the paternity, his paternity of the children. Because he's probably not going to be the guy with whom she wants to have children. And these worshipful men need to know that that's not their fault, but that the fact remains that's the danger. See, oftentimes we don't know how to present the information to guys because we've not been told that it is important to tell them what I'm going to tell you about the games they will try to play on you are not your fault. It is not your fault they'll try to do these things, even if you wear glasses, even if you're worshipful, even if you're not the stereotype. That it's not your fault that they're going to try to do these things. I just want you to know that they will try to do these things and these will be their reasons. So while you are being worshipful and waiting until marriage, she's fucking someone else. He ain't got to do none of this stuff. And when you think that she's pregnant with your child, you're going to need to know the real high possibility that the baby ain't yours because they don't really want your kid like that. And don't think you deserve to be their first baby daddy or anyone's first baby daddy. A lot of the men have sat up and seen excerpts of her interview and they've said, well, you know, her husband needs to go ahead and leave, or this is a reason to crash out. Well, they're already not together. They're already gone. But let me explain this to you. I mean, he's already out the picture apparently from the full interview. But let me explain this to you. While that man should leave if he has not already left, he shouldn't stick around if he is still in the picture and she's not telling the truth about them being split up. Understand that the reason many men don't is because they don't think that it's going to get any better. They've been told ain't no better, and these women are out here trying to make sure that there really isn't. The pro-black thing to do was to bounce on Westernisha and Amber and Becky and Ali Wong. That's the pro-black thing to do. Don't even go to China. They toxic there too. The pro-black thing to do is to take your butt to Laos and Cambodia, maybe Vietnam, Thailand, and probably not going to be Bangkok and Pattaya. And if you're Muslim, the southern Philippines and Malaysia, Brunei and Indonesia, and southern Thailand. And you look for your wives there. But you let the local men and the women know that you are going to spoil this woman because she's going to spoil you. Let them know this. That's the pro-black thing to do at this point, because you're going to be looking for a good wife for you and a good mom for your children if you're young enough to have them, and she's young enough to have them. Now, Richie Mack probably ain't trying to have no more kids. He's not marrying Elle, at least not in front of the state. But Elle is also not bringing her kids to him. And Richie Mack is also a dad, so he's not being cuckolded in this situation. Minnie F. Baby sat there and said that she is cuckolding men, genetically speaking. You need to come with a bag. I'm coming with these kids. And yeah, this thing between my legs is worth everything you own. She's sitting up saying that. And if you need her to touch a bill one time she's out, she would rather go and pay 100% of her own bills by herself till she finds another man than to sit up and pay some of the bills one time to help a man out. She's bought and sold. And she doesn't like being this way. She said it. She said that there are times she's cried because she's by herself. But she still believes in blaming men, and she has a father. And she said her mother's not like her. This is where AC is right. Accountability commentary is right. You can raise Keisha correctly, and she's still going to turn out like this because somebody's always in her ear. Girl, sprinkle, sprinkle. Every single time. And if you respond to push back, rightly so, with drizzle, drizzle, or single, single, then they want to sit up and make fun of you for that, even though they just sat up and did the same thing to you. They are predictable. Her toxicity, as she calls it, is predictable. She sat up and showed you the typical sister girl attitude right now today. I'm gonna wild the up out. I'm gonna bring these kids to other men to raise. These men need to have a bag. These men need to meet standards that the baby daddy ain't never had to meet. These men are gonna sit up here and spurl me and bail me out of the real consequences of my bad decisions. And the minute these men fall off financially, I'm gonna blame them and leave them. And not only that, but I will sit up here and be with a stud. And if the stud leaves me for a man, I'm gonna blame men too. She embodies and confesses to why it is that you cannot go and approach black women. And then she got the nerve to sit up there and say that women shouldn't ask men to marry. She wants to be, and you'll see all this in the full interview, she wants to be modern and the man needs to be traditional. And she wants to sit there and pick and choose when the man's going to be whichever one. And she even said, being like this gets me attention. Being a good woman would never get me this kind of attention. You men don't even want good women. And that's where she's not telling the truth. Black men have been trained not to believe that they will find one at a subconscious level. That's why she's finding what she's finding. You take that man that settled for her with her 3 kids, and you tell that man, hey man, listen, you can make this kind of money abroad in Southeast Asia, and you'll be treated a hell of a lot better. And if a woman is a single mom coming to you, she ain't bringing the kids to you because it ain't your responsibility. Like what L doesn't do to Richie Mack. You let that man know this. Walk him through maybe 1 or 2 steps with some paperwork to get the ability to earn money and live over there. And guess where that man is going to be? It ain't going to be in Atlanta with Minnie F. Baby, who can't even say baby right because she from New Orleans, Ninth Ward. Yeah, man. I probably should not have started this one off with the peace greeting. But there's still an important lesson that she taught us. And in order for me to highlight what that lesson is, go ahead and I'll shut up now so you can go to buy me a coffee and subscribe. Um, and the link to that post is already in the community tab. I hope that this and that particular post help you out. And I mean it from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. Thank you for listening as always. And black, heterosexual, non-select male power just because many F baby don't like it. And black patriarchy until extinction or judgment day. Thank you for flying with us here again on Jet Black Airways, where the phrase jet black is also a verb. Keep jetting black with us until the wings and the wheels fall off. Gender, justice, forever.